So today I'd like to talk a little bit about Alfred Hitchcock. You can see his picture down there. Okay, so I'd like to do this in sort of a school report style. I will be reading from this information taken off of the internet. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about Sir Alfred Hitchcock. Okay. Alfred Hitchcock was born August 13th in 1899 in Leytonstone, London, England, and he died April 29th of 1980 in Los Angeles, California. Sir Alfred Joseph Hitchcock was an English film director. He is widely regarded as one of the most influential figures in the history of cinema. He had a career spanning 6 decades. He directed over 50 feature films, many of which are still widely watched and studied. He is known as the master of suspense. Hitchcock became as well known as many of his actors thanks to his many interviews, cameo appearances in most of his films, and his hosting as well as producing the television anthology Alfred Hitchcock Presents from the years 1955 through 1965. Alfred Hitchcock's films garnered 46 Academy Award nominations, including 6 wins, although he never won the award for Best Director, despite 5 nominations. Hitchcock initially trained as a technical clerk and copywriter before entering the film industry in 1919 as a title card designer. His directorial debut was the British-German silent film The Pleasure Garden, and that was in 1925. His first successful film, The Lodger, A Story of the London Fog, in 1927, helped to shape the thriller genre, and Blackmail in 1929 was the first British talkie. His thrillers, The 39 Steps in 1935 and The Lady Vanishes in 1938, are ranked among the greatest British films of the 20th century. By 1939, he had international recognition, and producer David O. Selznick persuaded him to move to Hollywood. A string of successful films followed, including Rebecca in 1940, Foreign Correspondent in 1940, Suspicion 1941, Shadow of a Doubt in 1943, and Notorious 1946. Rebecca won the Academy Award for Best Picture with Hitchcock nominated as Best Director. He also received Oscar nominations for Lifeboat in 1944, Spellbound in 1945, Rear Window in 1954, and Psycho in 1960. Hitchcock's other notable films include Rope, 1948, Strangers on a Train, 1951, Dial M for Murder, 1954, To Catch a Thief, 1955, The Trouble with Harry, 1955, Vertigo, 1958, North by Northwest, 1959, The Birds, 1963, and Marnie, 1964, all of which were also financially successful and are highly regarded by film historians. Hitchcock made a number of films with some of the biggest stars in Hollywood, including 4 with Cary Grant, 4 with James Stewart, 3 with Ingrid Bergman, and 3 consecutively with Grace Kelly. Hitchcock became an American citizen in 1955. In 2012, Hitchcock's psychological thriller Vertigo, starring Stewart, displaced Orson Welles' Citizen Kane, 1941, as the British Film Institute's greatest film ever made, based on its worldwide poll of hundreds of film critics. As of 2021, 9 of his films had been selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry, including his personal favorite, Shadow of a Doubt, from 1943. He received the BAFTA Fellowship in 1971, the AFI Life Achievement Award in 1979, and was knighted in December of that year, 4 months before his death on April 29th, 1980. Now we can talk a little about his early childhood and education. Here's a photo with William Hitchcock, and it says probably with his first son, William, outside the family shop in London, 1900. Okay. Alfred Joseph Hitchcock was born in 1899 in the flat above his parents' leased greengrocer's shop at 517 High Road in Leytonstone, which was then part of Essex, now on the outskirts of East London. He was the son of greengrocer and poulterer William Edgar Hitchcock and Emma Jane. The household was characterized by an atmosphere of discipline. He had an older brother named William John and an older sister named Ellen Kathleen, who used the nickname Nellie. His parents were both Roman Catholics with partial Irish ancestry. There was a large, extended family, including Uncle John Hitchcock with his 5-bedroom Victorian house on Campion Road in Putney, complete with a maid, cook, chauffeur, and gardener. Every summer, his uncle rented a seaside house for the family in Cliftonville, Kent. Hitchcock said that he first became class conscious there, noticing the differences between tourists and locals. Describing himself as a well-behaved boy, his father called him his little lamb without a spot. Hitchcock said he could not remember ever having had a playmate. One of his favorite stories for interviewers was about his father sending him to the local police station with a note when he was 5. The policeman looked at the note and locked him in a cell for a few minutes, saying this is what we do to naughty boys. The experience left him with a lifelong phobia of law enforcement, and he told Tom Snyder in 1973 that he was scared stiff of anything to do with the law, and that he would refuse to even drive a car in case he got a parking ticket. The family moved again when Hitchcock was 11, this time to Stepney, and on October 5th, 1910, he was sent to St. Ignatius College in Stamford Hill, which was a Jesuit grammar school with a reputation for discipline. As corporal punishment, the priests used a flat, hard, springy tool made of gutta percha. Punishment was always at the end of the day, so the boys had to sit through classes anticipating the punishment if they had been written up for it. He later said that this is where he developed his sense of fear. Hitchcock's favorite subject was geography, and he became interested in maps and the timetables of trains, trams, and buses. According to John Russell Taylor, he could recite all the stops on the Orient Express. He had a particular interest in London trams. An overwhelming majority of his films include rail or tram scenes, in particular The Lady Vanishes, Strangers on a Train, and Number 17. A clapperboard shows the number of the scene and the number of takes, and Hitchcock would often take the two numbers on the clapperboard and whisper the London tram route names. For example, if the clapperboard showed scene 23, take 3, he would whisper, Woodford, Hampstead. Woodford being the terminus of the Route 23 tram, and Hampstead the end of Route 3. Hitchcock told his parents that he wanted to be an engineer, and on July 25th, 1913, he left St. Ignatius and enrolled in night classes at the London County Council School of Engineering and Navigation in Poplar. He had studied mechanics, electricity, acoustics, and navigation. Then, on December 12th, 1914, his father, who had been suffering from emphysema and kidney disease, died at the age of 52. To support himself and his mother, his older siblings had left home by then. Hitchcock took a job for 15 shillings a week as a technical clerk at the Henley Telegraph and Cable Company on Blomfield Street near London Wall. He continued night classes, this time in art history, painting, economics, and political science. After the First World War, Hitchcock took an interest in creative writing. In June 1919, he became a founding editor and business manager of Henley's in-house publication, The Henley Telegraph, to which he submitted several short stories. Henley's promoted him to the advertising department, where he wrote copy and drew graphics for electric cable advertisements. He enjoyed the job and would stay late at the office to examine the proofs. This was his first step toward cinema. He enjoyed watching films, especially American cinema, and from the age of 16, read the trade papers. He watched Charlie Chaplin, D.W. Griffith, and Buster Keaton, and particularly liked Fritz Lang's Der Mood Tod, 1921. On December 2nd of 1926, Hitchcock married the English screenwriter Alma Reville at the Brompton Oratory in South Kensington. The couple honeymooned in Paris, Lake Como, and St. Moritz before returning to London to live in a leased flat on the top 2 floors of 153 Cromwell Road in Kensington. Reville, who was born just hours after Hitchcock, converted to Catholicism, apparently at the insistence of Hitchcock's mother. She was baptized in May of 1927. Their daughter and only child, Patricia, or Pat, Alma Hitchcock, was born on July 7th of that year. Pat died on August 9th, 2021, at the age of 93. Revel became her husband's closest collaborator. Charles Champlin wrote in 1982, "The Hitchcock touch had 4 hands, and 2 were Alma's." At this time, Hitchcock also became notorious for pranks against the cast and crew. These jokes ranged from simple and innocent to crazy and maniacal. For instance, he hosted a dinner party where he dyed all the food blue because he claimed there weren't enough blue foods. He also had a horse delivered to the dressing room of his friend, actor Gerald du Maurier. By 1938, Hitchcock was aware that he had reached his peak in Britain. He had received numerous offers from producers in the United States, but he turned them all down because he disliked the contractual obligations or thought the projects were repellent. However, producer David O. Selznick offered him a concrete proposal to make a film based on the sinking of RMS Titanic, which was eventually shelved, but Selznick persuaded Hitchcock to come to Hollywood. In July of 1938, Hitchcock flew to New York and found that he was already a celebrity. Hitchcock formed an independent production company, Transatlantic Pictures, with his friend Sidney Bernstein. He made 2 films with Transatlantic, one of which was his first color film. With Rope, 1948, Hitchcock experimented with marshalling suspense in a confined environment, as he had done earlier with Lifeboat. The film appears as a very limited number of continuous shots, but it was actually shot in 10, ranging from 4.5 to 10 minutes each. A 10-minute length of film was the most that a camera's film magazine could hold at the time. Some transitions between reels were hidden by having a dark object fill the entire screen for a moment. Hitchcock used those points to hide the cut and began the next take with the camera in the same place. From 1955 to 1965, Hitchcock was the host of the television series Alfred Hitchcock Presents. With his droll delivery, gallows humor, and iconic image, the series made Hitchcock a celebrity. The title sequence of the show pictured a minimalist caricature of his profile He drew it himself. It is composed of only 9 strokes, which his real silhouette then filled. The series' theme tune was Funeral March of a Marionette by the French composer Charles Gounod. He directed 18 episodes of the series, which aired from 1955 to 1965. It became the Alfred Hitchcock Hour in 1962, and NBC broadcast the final episode on May 10th, 1965. Hitchcock's success in television spawned a set of short story collections in his name. These included Alfred Hitchcock's anthology, Stories They Wouldn't Let Me Do on TV, and Tales My Mother Never Told Me. In 1956, HSD Publications also licensed the director's name to create Alfred Hitchcock's Mystery Magazine, a monthly digest specializing in crime and detective fiction. Psycho in 1960 is arguably Hitchcock's best-known film. Based on Robert Bloch's 1959 novel Psycho, which was inspired by the case of Ed Gein, the film was produced on a tight budget of $800,000, equivalent to $8.2 million in 2023, and shot in black and white on a spare set using crew members from Alfred Hitchcock Presents. The unprecedented violence of the shower scene, the early death of the heroine, and the innocent lives extinguished by a disturbed murderer became the hallmarks of a new horror film genre. The film proved popular with audiences, with lines stretching outside theaters as viewers waited for the next showing. It broke box office records in the United Kingdom, France, South America, the United States, and Canada, and was a moderate success in Australia for a brief period. In The Birds, Melanie Daniels, a young socialite, meets lawyer Mitch Brenner in a bird shop. Jessica Tandy plays his possessive mother. Hedren visits him in Bodega Bay, where The Birds was filmed, carrying a pair of lovebirds as a gift. Suddenly, waves of birds start gathering, watching and attacking. The question, what do the birds want, is left unanswered. Hitchcock made the film with equipment from the Revue Studio, which made Alfred Hitchcock Presents. He said it was his most technically challenging film, using a combination of trained and mechanical birds against a backdrop of wild ones. Every shot was sketched in advance. Having refused a CBE in 1962, Hitchcock was appointed a Knight Commander of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire in the 1980 New Year Honours. He was too ill to travel to London. He had a pacemaker and was being given cortisone injections for his arthritis. So, on January 3rd, 1980, the British Consul General presented him with the papers at Universal Studios. Asked by a reporter after the ceremony why it had taken the Queen so long, Hitchcock quipped, "I suppose it was a matter of carelessness." Cary Grant, Janet Leigh, and others attended a luncheon afterwards. His last public appearance was on March 16th of 1980, when he introduced the next year's winner of the American Film Institute Award. He died of kidney failure the following month, April 29th, in his Bel Air home. Donald Spoto, one of Hitchcock's biographers, wrote that Hitchcock had declined to see a priest, but according to Jesuit priest Mark Henninger, he and another priest, Tom Sullivan, celebrated a Mass at the filmmaker's home, and Sullivan heard his confession. Hitchcock was survived by his wife and daughter. His funeral was held at Good Shepherd Catholic Church. Okay, so now I'd like to just name all of his films as a list. Okay. So his silent films include Number 13, 1922, which was unfinished and lost. Always Tell Your Wife, which was a short from 1923, which was also partially lost. The Pleasure Garden, 1925. The Mountain Eagle, 1926, which is also lost. The Lodger, A Story of the London Fog, 1927. The Ring, 1927. Downhill, 1927. The Farmer's Wife, 1928. Easy Virtue, 1928. Champagne, 1928. The Manx Man, 1929. Okay, now his sound films. We have Blackmail, 1929. An Elastic Affair, which is a short from 1930, and it is lost. Juno and the Paycock, 1930. Murder with an exclamation point, 1930. Elstree Calling, 1930. The Skin Game, 1931. Mary, 1931. Rich and Strange, 1931. Number 17, 1932. Waltzes from Vienna, 1934. The Man Who Knew Too Much, 1934. The 39 Steps, 1935. Secret Agent, 1936. Sabotage, 1936. Young and Innocent, 1937. The Lady Vanishes, 1938. Jamaica Inn, 1939. Rebecca, 1940. Foreign Correspondent, 1940. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, 1941. Suspicion, 1941. Saboteur, 1942. Shadow of a Doubt, 1943. Lifeboat, 1944. Spellbound, 1945. Notorious, 1946. The Paradigm Case, 1947. Rope, 1948. Under Capricorn, 1949. Stage Fright, 1950. Strangers on a Train, 1951. I Confess, 1953. Dial M for Murder, 1954. Rear Window, 1954. To Catch a Thief, 1955. The Trouble with Harry, 1955. The Man Who Knew Too Much, 1956. The Wrong Man, 1956. Vertigo, 1958. North by Northwest, 1959. Psycho, 1960. The Birds, 1963. Marnie, 1964. Torn Curtain, 1966. Topaz, 1969. Frenzy, 1972. And Family Plot, 1976. So, thank you very much for listening today. I hope that you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.